Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, what a title that you made simple. All 2024 European elections ranked. Who really won? Part 1. Preemptive like. My name's Connor, if you're new. I'm from the US. I don't know a lot about EU politics, but I love to learn about it. So I'm going to try and be laser focused. I might have some questions. You guys are always awesome at answering those in the comments. I got to check out the comment section after the video. I'll do that at the end. So, and I'm curious how the ranking system is going to go. But let's go. Ready to learn. Go.
This video is sponsored by NVIDIA AI. Billions of voters hit the polls in 2024. Yes, billions. Over 100 countries held elections, including 8 of the world's 10 most populous nations. It's been wild. And here's the big question for all you righties and lefties out there. Who actually came out on top? We keep hearing about this supposed far-right surge, but is it real? To answer this, we're going to have a bit of fun in this video. Today, the EU Made Simple will dive into all of the elections within the EU and tally up all the wins. And we've got a really cool point system to keep it spicy.
Okay. So he's going to... So it's an overall going to go through all of the EU elections and just see how many are right wing and left wing, and then whoever wins. He's going to explain it more here.
First, though, we need to set some ground rules for this to work. Rule 1. We're focusing on elections in the EU only. Yes, our big bro America also went to the polls, but this is an EU-centric channel. Rule 2. Only national parliamentary elections and second-round presidential elections count. So no German state elections. Sorry, Thuringia. But there is one exception, the European Parliament elections. Kind of obvious for an EU channel, right? Rule 3. Here's where it gets juicy though, the point system. Winners get 1 point for their camp, which we have categorized as far left, left-leaning, center, right-leaning, or far right. If a country flips, like going from right to left, the losing team gets 1 minus point. Why? Well, because losing to your biggest rival should come with consequences, right?
Okay.
Now we know it's getting harder and harder to categorize parties into left or right, but we will do our best and let us know in the comments if you disagree. So,
especially because, you know, some countries can vary of what policy ideologies would be considered right, left, or center. So I wonder how he's going to get around that.
Let's kick things off with our very first election in 2024,
Okay.
Finland. This was a presidential election, and the second round was a showdown between Pekka Haavisto, an independent allied with the center-left Finnish Green League, and Alexander Stubb from the center-right National Coalition. A center-right versus center-left classic matchup.
True.
And the win went to Mr. Stubb, who secured 51.6% of the total vote. Now here's where it gets interesting though. Some might argue Stubb leans center-left. He's the leader of the National Coalition's liberal wing and supports multiculturalism, same-sex marriage, and controlled immigration. But despite these positions, both Stubb and his party identify as center-right, so we're sticking with that and awarding 1 point to the right-leaning camp. As for the previous president, Sauli Niinistö, he was also associated with the National Coalition and had a center-right ideology. So, since there's no flip in Finland's leadership, no minus points will be given.
Okay, so those two candidates, not this guy, the other guy, were two new people running for office. So if the previous leader was of the opposite party to the new leader, then that's one. But
On to the next election in Hungary. Unlike Finland's direct presidential election, Hungary's process is indirect. The parliament selects the president. The Hungarian parliament elected Tamás Sulyok, the outgoing head of the Constitutional Court, as the new president. Sulyok was the sole candidate and secured 134 out of 198 votes in a secret ballot. Although Sulyok is officially an independent, his backing by Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Fidesz party aligns him with the far-right camp. Therefore, we will award 1 point to the far right. And since the previous president, Katalin Novak, was also associated with the Fidesz party, there is no shift in political alignment, meaning no minus points. Next, let's turn to Slovakia, Hungary's neighbor. Slovakia held the second round of its presidential elections. The candidates were Peter Pellegrini, a former prime minister and founder of the center-left Voice Social Democracy Party, and Ivan Korčok, a former minister of foreign affairs associated with Progressive Slovakia, a centrist party. Pellegrini, running as an independent, received strong support from Prime Minister Robert Fico and his Direction Social Democracy Party. Although Fico's party is broadly classified as left-wing, it leans conservative on issues like Euroscepticism and nationalism. So, Korčok led in the first round, but ultimately Pellegrini secured the victory in the second round with 53% of the vote. Not even that close. This win earns the left-leaning camp 1 point. And since the previous president, Zuzana Čaputová, was from the centrist Progressive Slovakia party, Pellegrini's victory represents a significant political flip. This means a minus point for the center, as they lost. Ouch. Many people are the previous even that close. This win earns the left-leaning camp 3% point. And since the previous president, Zuzana Čaputová, was from the centrist Progressive Slovakia party, Pellegrini's victory represents a significant political flip. This means a minus point for the center, as they lost.
Okay.
Ouch.
Okay.
Many people ask me how to create cool videos. Videos that bring their ideas to life. Ones they're proud to share with their friends, yet are simple to make without requiring advanced skills. In video AI...
Guys, any videos I watch, especially if they're pretty recent uploads, you can skip forward if you want. But I'm going to play through their advertisement sponsor.
Enables you to do just that. This is how it works. Simply type a prompt, like, create me an animated video about the hotspots of Bratislava in Slovakia, and just look at these results.
Then there's St. Martin's Cathedral, Gothic architecture that's just mind-blowing. And the old town, so vibrant, so full of life.
Impressive, right? Unlike traditional video tools, with a steep learning curve that only solve part of the video creation process, in Video AI is your creative partner you've always wanted. It removes all the friction and puts you in the director's seat, letting you focus on your vision and your idea, while in Video AI does all the heavy lifting for you. You can even edit whatever you like using simple text commands like add my voice, and look at these results. Then there's St. Martin's Cathedral, Gothic architecture. That is just mind-blowing. And the old town, so vibrant, so full of life. Simply put.
Wow. And because it's AI generated video? I mean, so does that mean you don't have to worry about any kind of copyright, taking someone else's footage?
With Video AI as your creative partner, you can create more and better videos. You can try Video AI for free now, and this will save you hundreds of dollars that you would have otherwise spent on editing, animation, and other production costs. Find the link in the description below. Cool. Next up in April, we had Croatia's parliamentary election. The main battle was between the center-right Croatian Democratic Union, in short HDZ, and the center-left Rivers of Justice Party. HDZ, already holding 2 terms in office, was aiming for a third. And guess what? They nailed it. HDZ won 61 seats out of 151. Rivers of Justice won 42 seats. And the far-right Homeland Movement Coalition, also called DP, won 14 seats. After about 2 weeks of negotiations, HDZ formed a coalition government with the Homeland Movement. So here's how the points shake out. First, we will give 1 point to the center-right for winning the election. Well done, HDZ. Next, the far-right also gets a point, because they're now part of the governing coalition. And finally, there's no minus points here, as HDZ stayed in power, so there was no flip in leadership. Next up, Lithuania's presidential election. In Lithuania, it was a showdown between Gitanas Nausėda, the independent incumbent president, and Ingrida Šimonytė, backed by the center-right Homeland Union, Lithuanian Christian Democrats. And let's just say it wasn't even close. Noseda crushed it, winning by a landslide of over 75% of the vote.
Wow.
In fact, this is the largest margin of victory ever for a presidential candidate in Lithuania's history in a free election. Now here's the tricky part. Nausėda is an independent, and his political positions are hard to pin down. In 2024, Nausėda stated that his vision aligns with social democracy, and his re-election was endorsed by the center-left Lithuanian Social Democratic Party and the left-wing Lithuanian Regions Party. Based on this, we're assigning 1 point to the center-left. Small score update. The centrists are losing, and the left-leaning camp, right-leaning camp, and far-right are tied. But this will change. Now, let's move to the biggest elections of the year, the European Parliament elections. These elections were held across all 27 EU member states over 4 days, from June the 6th to June the 9th. Remember, your national parties are part of broader EU political groups. Check the description for a link to see where your party fits. Before the election, the center-right European People's Party, in short EPP, the center-left Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, the SD, and the centrist Renew Europe held the majority. But after the votes were counted, the composition of the parliament saw a major shakeup. The center-right EPP won 188 seats. The center-left SD won 136 seats. The new far-right group, Patriots for Europe, won 84 seats. The right-wing conservative ECR won 78 seats. The centrist Renew Europe won 77 seats. The Greens EFA won 53 seats. The left won 46 seats, and the new far-right group, Europe of Sovereign Nations, won 25 seats. This election was a real game-changer. Renew Europe dropped from 3rd to 5th place, 2 new right-wing to far-right groups emerged, and the ECR became the 4th most influential group. Meanwhile, progressive groups lost seats across the board, with nationalists and conservatives clearly coming out ahead. So,
I feel like you could see, I'm not saying that you shouldn't therefore look at each country individually in the EU, but I mean, since members from those countries are sent to the EU Parliament, you can kind of already guess the answer of who won just by this stuff.
how do we assign points here? Let's break it down. First, obviously, the EPP won the election, so that's 1 point right there to the right-leaning camp. Next, we have 2 new far-right groups, Patriots for Europe and Europe of Sovereign Nations, making a significant impact. That's 1 point to the far right. Now, there's also Renew Europe. They didn't only lose the most seats, but they also dropped in the rankings. For that, they get -1 point. Let's also talk about the key EU leadership roles. Ursula von der Leyen from the center-right EPP remained the Commission President, earning 1 point for the center-right. And Antonia Costa from the center-left became the new Council President, so we'll give 1 point to the center-left. And finally, let's talk about Ursula von der Leyen's team, the European Commission, made up of 27 commissioners. Von der Leyen handpicked her team, and the allocation of top positions reveals where the political influence lies. A significant share went to the center-right EPP, earning 1 point for the right-leaning camp, and meanwhile the center-left S&D secured notable roles as well, so we'll award 1 point for the left-leaning camp too. What's very surprising though is the performance of Renew Europe, the centrist group, which managed to secure an impressive 5 commissioners, despite their extremely poor election results. For pulling that off, the centrist camp earns 1 point too. So, does this mean the centrist comeback is on? Well, let's see. On the final day of the European Parliament elections, 2 other EU member states elected their national parliaments. Let's start with Belgium's federal election. Belgium's federal parliament has 150 MPs, and all seats were up for grabs in this election. The nationalist and Eurosceptic New Flemish Alliance came out on top, winning 24 seats. In second place was the conservative and nationalist Vlaams Belang, securing 20 seats. And tied for second was the liberal French-speaking reformist movement, also with 20 seats. And the remaining seats were shared among other smaller parties. But yeah, for such a small country, Belgium's parliament sure has many parties.
Yeah.
Maybe too many. At the time of recording, the formation of a new government is still ongoing, and it's uncertain.
The USA only has 2 parties, which I think is... I think is too many, but I think having 3 maybe 4 or 5 parties would be a good thing, because when you only have 2 parties, the Republicans and Democrats, who have any chance of winning, then it limits your ability to vote for a party that you most agree with. And then you have to settle for just voting for either the Republican or the Democratic Party, even though they both might have a lot of things you disagree with. And so I think at least 3 parties is better than 2.
Whether the new Flemish Alliance or Vlaams Belang will take part. But, given the results, we'll assign 1 point to the right-wing camp for the new Flemish Alliance's win, as they align with this category. And we'll have to give 1 point to the far right for Vlaams Belang's strong performance. The second EU member state to hold national elections on June the 9th was Bulgaria, a country that has truly mastered the art of political chaos. This marked their 6th election in just 3 years. And, incredibly, it was only the first of 2 elections in 2024. As has become the norm in Bulgaria, the biggest parties failed to form a coalition, and eventually President Rumen Radev had to step in, appointing a caretaker government and calling for a snap election in October. To avoid double counting points, we won't award any for the first election. Instead, let's focus on the second election in October. So, the Bulgarians once again headed to the polls to elect their 240 seats in the National Assembly. But voter fatigue was clear, with turnout dropping to just 39%,
Fatigue.
which is quite understandable, considering this was their 7th election in 3 years. Nonetheless, securing first place was the center-right GRB SDS coalition, securing 69 seats. In second place came the centrist to center-right PPDB coalition, with 37 seats. And in third place, the far-right Revival Party, claiming 35 seats. The remaining seats were split among smaller parties. Now, the clear winners of the election was the GRB SDS coalition, and will assign 1 point to the center-right camp for their victory. However, the political turmoil in Bulgaria, marked by years of corruption scandals and instability, has once again prevented successful coalition talks. As of now, it seems increasingly likely that Bulgaria will head to yet another election this year, the 8th one in 3 years. This is truly a staggering example of political chaos. And then came the big one, France. France faced a political earthquake following the National Rally's victory in the European Parliament elections. In response, President Emmanuel Macron dissolved the National Assembly and called for snap elections, putting all 577 seats up for grabs. Contrary to predictions of a far-right sweep, though, strategic voting and opposition alliances shifted the outcome. The New Popular Front, also called NFP, a coalition of far-left to center-left parties, emerged as the surprise winner with 180 seats, up from 131 in 2022. Macron's centrist Ensemble coalition took second, with 159 seats, a steep drop from 245. The National Rally finished third, rising to 142 seats from 89. And the Republicans and others claimed the remaining seats. The election produced a hung parliament, with no majority among the 3 main blocs. Macron initially appointed Michel Barnier to form a government, but it collapsed within 3 months after a no-confidence vote in December. François Bayrou, leader of the Democratic Movement, was then tasked with forming a government. Bayrou's administration mirrors Barnier's, with only 211 MPs backing it, leaving it vulnerable to collapse. Adding to the challenge, the French constitution prohibits another snap election before June 2025, ensuring a prolonged hung parliament. For this one, we'll award 1 point to the far left and the left-leaning camp for the NFP's win and their strong presence in the National Assembly, and -1 point to the center for Macron's Ensemble coalition losing its majority. Next up, we have Austria, where voters headed to the polls in September to elect the 183 seats in the National Council. The far-right Freedom Party of Austria, in short FPÖ, dominated the election, securing 57 seats, a huge gain of 26 seats compared to the last election. The center-right...
So parliamentary elections are just, you vote, everyone votes members of parliament into parliament, and then whoever has the majority, if they don't, a majority where they don't have to find a coalition, then they choose the leader, right? I feel like that's the British system. Or if they don't have the threshold and another party somewhat close to them has enough members in parliament to push them over the threshold, does this party get anything? Do they get any say in who the party that was close to getting majority will pick? Or will they just allow this party to pick and then they'll just get some benefits?
Austrian People's Party, ÖVP, came in second with 51 seats. And in third place was the Social Democratic Party of Austria, who managed to get 21 seats. Despite the FPÖ emerging as the largest party, no major parties, including the ÖVP, were willing to form a coalition with them. But coalition talks among the FPÖ's opposition completely fell apart a couple of weeks ago. Ouch. It looks like Austria might be gearing up for another election soon, or a far-right FPÖ government. For more details, check out the video linked above. But as the FPÖ won the most seats in 2024, we'll award 1 point to the far right. Next up in October,
question, guys, if the further left, the center left, far left, see that if those three were to, like, if they combined, would have the majority, but they don't want to combine yet because they don't like each other, but they see that the right party and the center party are about to form a coalition, can these guys then say, okay, never mind, we're going to form a coalition too? Well, it wouldn't matter if... Never mind. That's a dumb question. It wouldn't matter because if these guys form a coalition, it'll cross the threshold anyway, so never mind.
2024, we'll award 1 point to the far right. Next up in October, we're back in Lithuania, but this time for the second round of parliamentary elections, deciding the 141 seats in Lithuania's unicameral parliament. The Social Democratic Party of Lithuania came out on top, winning 52 seats. Second place went to the center-right Homeland Union, Lithuanian Christian Democrats, with 28 seats. And third place was taken by the right-wing, but socially left, Dawn of Nemunas Party, with 20 seats.
Cool
and the remaining
symbol.
seats were distributed as follows. As the largest party, the Social Democratic Party of Lithuania signed an agreement to form a coalition government with the center-left Union of Democrats for Lithuania and the populist Dawn of Nemunas, with Gintautas Palukas as the prime minister. This means 1 point for the left-leaning candidate.
So was this guy not the first choice of the Red Party? But when he had to form a coalition with these two, then they had to settle for someone else? This is my main question. Or is it that, like, these guys just don't want the others to get in charge, so we'll just form with these guys and put whoever they anticipate, whoever they intended to put in?
Also, very interestingly, Lithuania...
Or are they like, okay, we'll join coalition to give you a majority, but we don't like the guy you were about to appoint, so change him.
Flipped. Just 4 years ago, the Christian Democrats were in power, making this a clear shift from right to left, which makes Lithuania stand out as one of the only countries this year where such a political flip occurred. And you know what that means. -1 point for the center-right. Now we're in November, and first up is Romania's presidential election. But hold your applause. No points are awarded here, as the second round of the election was cancelled. You see, the first round was won by Călin Georgescu, an independent candidate known for his anti-EU stance and pro-Russian leanings. However, the Romanian Constitutional Court annulled the results, citing election fraud and illegal Russian influence. A rerun of the election is now scheduled for May, so no points will be awarded for now. But Romania also had a parliamentary election, where Romanians went to the polls to elect 331 members of the Chamber of Deputies and 134 members
Jesus, what are all these different colors?
of the Senate, 31 members of the Chamber of Deputies, and 134 members of the Senate. And here's how it all played out. First place went to the Social Democratic Party, the PSD, with 22%. Second place was claimed by the far-right Alliance for the Union of Romanians, securing 18%. And third place went to the center-right National Liberal Party, earning 13%. And the remaining seats were distributed as follows. The Social Democrats won, and they formed a coalition with the PNL and UDMR, maintaining the structure of 13%. And the remaining seats were distributed as follows. The Liberal Party, securing 18%, and third place went to the center-right National Liberal Party, earning 13%. And the remaining seats were distributed as follows. The Social Democrats won, and they formed a coalition with the PNL and UDMR.
That's strange. So they formed a coalition with the center-right party? So does that mean the center-right party disliked the far-right party more than they disliked this party? Or I don't know.
Maintaining the structure of the previous government. This coalition holds a majority in the Senate, but relies on support from minority parties in the Chamber of Deputies to govern effectively. Nonetheless, as the Social Democrats won the election, we will give 1 point to the left-leaning camp. The final EU election we will cover in this video is Ireland, who went to the polls to elect their parliament. As for the results, first place went to Fianna Fáil, a centre-to-centre-right party with 48 seats. Second place was taken by Sinn Féin, securing 39 seats. And third place went to Fine Gael, a centre-right party with 38 seats. As for the remaining seats, they were distributed as follows. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have decided to work together to form a government. Although they're 2 seats short of a majority, they've initiated talks with smaller parties and independents to...
I'm assuming this is going to add a point to the center-right and subtract a point from the center-left.
secure the needed support. These discussions are still ongoing, but the victory of Fianna Fáil and their pivotal role in government formation earn 1 point for the center. Well done to the center camp. Okay, sure, you could argue that Fianna Fáil leans towards the right, but their alignment with Renew Europe makes a strong case for categorizing them as centrists. Plus...
What?
Okay, earn 1 point, but the independents. 2 seats Fáil and Fine Gael. As for the race went spent to Fianna Fáil, a centre-to-centre-right party with 48 seats. Second place was taken by Sinn Féin, securing 39 seats. And third place went to Fine Gael, a centre-right party with 38 seats.
Okay, but if the two largest coalitions formed were the center-to-center-right and the center-right, then how would that prove a win for the center? Center, center-right, center-right.
As for the remaining seats, they were distributed as follows. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have decided to work together to form a government. Although they're 2 seats short of a majority, they've initiated talks with smaller parties and independents to secure the needed support. These discussions are still ongoing, but the victory of Fianna Fáil and their pivotal role in government formation earn 1 point for the center. Well done to the center camp. Okay, sure, you could argue that Fianna Fáil leans towards the right, but their alignment with Renew Europe makes a strong case for categorizing them as centrists.
But okay, but he categorized them as center right. So if you have center right, a center, but also a little bit center right, then how would wouldn't that move towards center right, not towards the center?
Plus, let's be honest, the center has had a rough year, so they could really use this win. And that's a wrap on all the elections in 2024.
So what does this show, guys? What does the trend show? And these are the most telling. The most losses going to the center, and right-leaning lost 1, but far right lost none. Left center left lost none, and the far left lost none. And the far left gained one, they gained some, they only gained 2, but lost 3. They gained a lot, lost 1, and they gained a lot. What this shows is that it seems like the EU and the world is entering an era where people are going to a side. There's less. This doesn't spell something great too, because it spells disaster for bipartisanship in countries. And if this continues, then there's going to be more and more center party losses and more left, center left, center right, and center left, far left, and center right, far right gaining more, which means people are becoming more and more separated politically. Not usually a good thing.
And now, without any further ado, let's take a look at the final tally. Last place, the center. They finished the year with -1 points, marking yet another disappointing performance for Macron-style centrists. Second to last, the far left, scoring just 1 point. Their only saving grace was the impressive showing by France.
And then it would be number 3 would go to leaning right, even though left-leaning and right-leaning both have equal gains. Right-leaning has a loss and the left doesn't. Oh, but still, actually, no. This would be number 3. This would be number 2. And the number 1 winner would be left-leaning.
France's new Popular Front coalition, where the party La France Insoumise had a very impressive showing. In third place, the far right, finishing strong with 5 points. It's been a killer year for them. Outright wins in Austria and Hungary, plus coalition successes across Europe. This momentum cannot be ignored. Second place goes to the right-leaning camp with 6 points. They continue to dominate the European Parliament and hold their ground as a major force in most member states. And in first place, surprisingly, goes to the left-leaning camp with 7 points. Key wins in Lithuania and France propelled them to the top. But before you start celebrating a left-wing renaissance, let's be clear. This doesn't mean the left won overall.
I don't care.
In reality, the right-leaning spectrum, far right and right-leaning, amassed 11 points to the left's 8, asserting their dominance. And let's not forget the collapse of the center, a vital coalition partner for many left-leaning parties. With the center gone, the left's path to broader influence looks increasingly shaky. Looking ahead, 2025 also has some key elections to watch out for. Germany heads to the polls in February. Romania's presidential elections are set for May. And Poland follows with its presidential elections in June. So, who will give you the very best election coverage? We will. So please subscribe to stay informed. And to support us further, consider joining us on Patreon. Every contribution helps us bring you more in-depth discussions on Europe's future. Thank you to our presidents, Jan, Sjoukje, Christian, Peter, HEVD, and BJ. See you in the next video.
So very interesting. I love learning about politics, EU politics. The one criticism, or maybe I'm asking you if it's an okay criticism, is I think that separate country, I think there should have been a separate video for the country's elections in the EU and tally them up, and the EU Parliament, because when it came to the EU Parliament tallies of points, they became a bit more arbitrary and didn't follow the guidelines that were presented at the beginning that seemed to be more guidelines for individual countries. And I think that the EU Parliament swinging in points maybe should have been like its own video. But I could be wrong there. I'm excited for part 2. Love y'all. Let's check out some comments, shall we? Where is Portugal at an election? Well, he said this is only part 1. Interesting. I disagree with you giving no points to the French far right. It did get less seats than expected, but it was still a sharp increase compared to the last election. And EU Made Simple responded, true. After I finished the video, I thought the same. So maybe 6 points for them would be fair. It's insane how you say Belgium has way too many parties, and yet as a Belgian, I'm still waiting for a party to raise, which I mostly agree with. So I say that with the US, you know, only 2 parties. I'm like, you both kind of suck on a lot of ways. I have to settle. And even with like, what, 13 parties in Belgium or something, still people are like, I don't know yet. At 1507, the French election, which I would consider, I actually consider giving points to the far right and maybe center right too. The left made up multiple diverse parties. Republicans gained. You were more liberal towards the left when it comes to the EU elections. So I forget if I said that about the French one. Oh, they did a timestamp.
This one will award 1 point to the far left and leaving it vulnerable to Clarnic move after a no-pointed parliament with no majority among the 3 main blocs. Macron initially...
No, this isn't the one that I was actually a little... I thought that... This one. I thought this one was the strange one to give a point to the center. Because, as he said, a center-right in Renew Europe and a center-right in Fine Gael. I don't know how he went from these two being definitely center-right and this one center but leaning right, but he gave a point to the center instead of center-right, which didn't really make much sense to me. But I learned a lot. Interesting. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. Would love to hear what you think. Agree, disagree with what they said, what I said. Answer any questions I had. Any comments at all. Love you guys. See you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Bye, guys.